people need to first know that you exist.
Mm-hmm.
From here, they need to trust that the things that are coming out your mouth, that you're not an AI, you're actually real. The next thing is I need to trust that your process and your system and your approach makes sense. So that's how we grab attention, and it's over the long term.
Successful revenue leaders once started their careers just like you and I. They faced the challenges that their careers brought to them, they rose to the occasion, and became the leaders that we admire today. Join me as we explore the skills and stories that make a great leader with a pinch of vulnerability. Hello and welcome to Sales Therapy. I'm your host, Alper Yurder. Grab a chair. This is your exclusive invitation to the therapy room, as leaders are going to be sharing their career-defining moments, their secret tips and tricks in their arsenal towards success. And I promise we'll always end on a positive note. Today in the therapy chair, we have a very special guest. Hannah Ajikawo is one of the LinkedIn top voices when it comes to buyer centricity in sales. And she shares her wisdom with the world through her work with a revenue funnel. We'll talk about the success, the joy, the pain, and the journey as usual. Welcome to Sales Therapy, Hannah. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I've been setting myself a few workout challenges. So I've been doing 2 workouts a day for 3 days a week.
Physical workout?
Physical workouts, yeah.
Okay.
When you see me and I'm like just bursting through the door.
And that improves everything for you? That solves the problems?
She's very fit now.
And that improves everything for you? That solves the problems?
Yeah, it does. Like I love that. It just puts my head in a great space. So I'm feeling fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Oh, I love that. Okay, great. So we'll want more of that energy. I've been feeling a little sick lately, so I think this is the 4th episode where I'm recording semi-sick, and some of our listeners are already like, okay, when are you going to get better? This is getting long. But apologies for that. I'm doing my best. I think I'm getting old now, so these things started lasting longer.
That's cool. It's okay. You've got a baby face. That's fine.
Okay, good. So do you. Any good therapy starts with childhood, my dear Hannah, and growing up, because it shapes the person we are today as a person and as how we show up at work, what we do, the decisions we make. My question to you is, where did you grow up? How was your childhood? And then I'll follow up on that.
Okay, so I fantastic childhood. I have been very fortunate to have both my parents live with me in my household, which is very uncommon from my area. If you do the statistics, it's very rare to have 2 parents in the household. So I grew up in the northeast London. So it's like in a city where it's just like very multicultural. You know, I had a Turkish godmother, Greek godmother, English godmother, Indian godmother, Caribbean godparents. Like,
wow.
I grew up in so many different cultures. All of my friends were different colors and races and creeds, and it was just I had youth centers and had my older brother, and we just had so much fun as a kid. And my parents were very my mum's Jamaican and my dad is Nigeria. They're still married, and which is hilarious after 42 years. But they kind of just supported us in pursuing whatever we wanted to pursue. So when I wanted to go to theatre school, I went to theatre school. I wanted to be a singer, they let me go singing. I wanted to be a dancer, go be dancing. So I had a very great upbringing. There was a lot of love in my household, like lots and lots of love, very open, lots of parties and all that thing. But the one thing that used to be kind of like an undercurrent though was we always had like highs and lows from a financial perspective, which set me up to make the same mistakes as I entered into like late teens and adulthood. I didn't know money. I didn't know how to handle it. I was very financially insecure and I didn't know. I was very ignorant. So that taught me some lessons very early on.
I'm very interested in that there was an abundance of love and joy in the house. So love wasn't something conditional for you, because a lot of times when I ask this question, I think the conversation goes maybe 2-3 ways. One is like, love is sometimes conditional for people. Like, you have to be good, you have to be successful, you have to be this, that. I actually shared our chat with Patrick Trimpey today, which was, it resonated a lot with me. Like, you had to be a certain type of child to get that love and affection. Wasn't that the case for you?
Absolutely not. It's funny because my dad on paper should be the very strict, Nigerian-born father. And he wasn't. He was very silly. He didn't adhere to a lot of Nigerian customs where it comes to like just respect everybody, all elders. there's certain ways that you give yourself to your husband, and you clean. He's just like, when my family would come around and see him like cleaning up, they'd be like, "What are you doing? Why aren't the kids cleaning up? You should be. Why is your daughter, talking back to you?" He's like,
Ooh, okay.
it was all of that sort of stuff. I was never rude. I
Mm.
never got in trouble really as a kid. But it wasn't conditional. It was very much I am proud of you, but I want you guys to like go after everything. You understand that sometimes it's gonna be a little bit hard for you. So you might have to work harder. We get told that a lot in particularly Afro Caribbean households.
Yeah,
And just be a good person.
yeah.
And I've just always been that person in my group where it's just like I'm not really the troublemaker. I'm just a chill, and I make you laugh. I'm always ambitious. I've been like that my whole life.
Okay, well, since I've met you about maybe now over a year ago, you come across as a very self-confident person, and I guess part of that is explained in that upbringing. I'm sure there's other things we can go deeper, but
Yeah.
for now, at least on the surface, you come across as a very,
Yeah.
self-comfortable, self-confident person. But didn't notice any kind of early connections to your current job during your formative years? You mentioned singer dancer. I think that's quite different from what you're doing today.
I know. I'm every day I'm performing. This is a performance. No, I'm joking.
It is. It
It
is.
was. You know what? Yeah, I see a lot of parallels. So when I was younger, I was very bossy. I
Mm,
mean, so it got to a point. I think I got to 13 years old, and all my friends had got together in a group to be like, "We have to tell Hannah that she's too bossy," and they had like this big like moment where they brought me aside and was like, "Stop being so bossy." But I used to make my cousins do homework. That's what we used to do. We used to play schools, and I used to make them sit down. And I was the first one with a computer and a printer, so I used to make worksheets at like 11 years old, 12 years old, and print them out. And when we get to my grandparents' house, I'd make them do homework. It's like, so I always wanted to train and teach. And when I learned things, I wanted to tell everyone else, like, oh my God, I just discovered this thing. At school, I would be the person. Once I learned how to read and write very fast.
mm,
So I'd help my peers. I'd help my teacher to do things. I'd help my teacher to help the teachers to settle the classroom and say, like, stop being jokers. Let's focus. We've got our exams coming up. So I've always
okay.
been that the teacher's pet, the teacher, the helping others. And that's what I do now. So when people, cutting through the noise now, and we'll get into it, and how people are trying to be fake and you don't know who's real. And I'm like, God, honestly, this is me. I've always been a helper.
Mm,
My mum calls me peace of mind. I solve things. I fix things. I've been that way my entire life.
okay.
Yeah.
So now you are in a place where you feel probably confident and happy about what you're doing, and we'll get to that, like what you're doing and why you're doing and all that. But I'm wondering, like, achieving success is not always easy. There are highs and lows along the journey. Like, how, maybe can you walk us through your career a little briefly? And I like to keep this under a minute. And then maybe share a bit of highs and lows, like the moments where you felt like, especially the lows, I really love hearing, and how you bounce back from them.
Oh, that's easy. My career was I can give you the trajectory. So started off, was very stiff. I was like, I'm not going to talk to no one. I'm just going to shut up and do the sales thing because I'm the only black person, only woman, all that kind of stuff. So I had a lot of identity things that I was challenging. I was also figuring out my sexuality. I didn't know what was going on there. So I was like, I think I'm gay. I don't know. So I was dealing with that. Once I became comfortable in my own skin, I performed
Yes.
very well.
Yes.
But that was once I also was coupled with a very good manager
Hmm.
who looked at me, and the first person he walked over when he started on his first day came over to me and said, "What's going on here? What, you look like someone that knows what they're doing. What's going on here?" And once he gave me that trust,
Hmm.
it was crazy. I performed so well. I won all the awards. Went on to my next role. Won all the awards. Did really well. Closed deals I had no business closing. And then I remember going to my next role, and everything went really wrong. And then I went to another role, and everything went really wrong. I was like, no one's performing here. I'm not performing. I used to call myself, I'm not a salesperson right now. Haven't closed a deal yet. I'm not a salesperson. I was always the close my first deal in 8 to 12 weeks. Like that, I'd set myself a challenge. I'm going to close a deal as fast as I can. I don't care if it's £1 or 100K.
Okay.
So, but what that did to me is that it got me curious about why aren't people performing?
Hmm.
What's happening with marketing? What's happening with finance? What's happening with our product? And that triggered this curiosity around go to market. I didn't know it was go to market. I was just very interested in all of the other support systems around the business and why sales weren't doing well. I was never the alone underperformer. It was everyone. It was like
Mm.
everyone was underperforming. The whole business was doing badly. And I was very curious as to why the hell was that happening? Why are people not being fired? Why are like I was just like, what is happening here? So yeah, and then that of course triggered me into responding to a LinkedIn message for consulting services, and I never turned back. And that was 8 years ago.
Oh wow, okay. And
Yeah.
how has the past 8 years been then?
Oh, funky. I've done roles that I'm like, I don't even know if this is a proper job description. I've just done stuff. It's like
Yeah,
revenue things,
yeah.
training and being a rep, being a leader in
Revenue things. I love that.
yeah, you
That is
can't
me
just
right now. Revenue
yeah.
things. I'm revenue things.
I've been the AE that got pulled into board meetings because now I'm in charge of the pricing strategy and now I'm onboarding the reps, but I also have a target and I'm also evangelizing the brand. Like I started to as I got more confident, I started to find spaces and leaders who would take advantage of my different skill sets. That wasn't just like go out and take some meetings, right? They
Mm.
saw, oh wow, if I just do this with Hannah, she's going to help us so much. Like put
Okay.
her here, like just pick her up and put her there, right? So yeah, there was a lot of that. So it's just been a really interesting job. I've learned
Mm.
so much. I've learned so much in my time in sales and strategy that a lot of people that have double my experience, like I don't get how you know that already.
What have you learned that
Uh,
others? Mm.
yeah, so I think the big thing here is just a lot around where things go wrong
Mm.
and why things are going wrong and where leaders make mistakes and why and how you get reps to improve their performance and how you get business units to become more aligned and how you simplify things for buyers. Like those interactions were never things or responsibilities, and not really the responsibilities of reps typically, right? They're very strategic, they're big thinking, but I was always curious. I wanted to know, like, why are people not doing what I'm doing? I'm closing more. Why is my conversion rate higher than yours? What are you doing? Oh, you're going to too many meetings. You're wasting your time. I ain't going to that kind of meeting. I challenge the status quo more because I
Hmm.
just didn't understand. Like, if I didn't understand the logic of why we were interacting in that way with a prospect or a buyer or a customer or partners, I challenge it. I just asked, like, why do we do it this way? And no one asked those questions. I remember the CEO came, a new CEO came. He said, I saw your name on the sales board. What are you doing that no one else is doing? I was like, I don't know.
I'm asking
And
questions.
yeah, when I stormed into his office on the last day of the month to ask him to sign a contract, and he turned around to me and said, "Has this been checked by finance and legal?" I said, "Not yet. They're taking too long, but trust me, it's all fine."
Mm.
He said, "Okay, I'm trusting you," and he signed it. But he said, "What you do is you ask questions."
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, that's it."
Mm.
So yeah,
No,
that's why.
the asking question can come from a lot of places, but I think, like, obviously smart, analytical, all that, curious, but I think confidence, presence, knowing, being comfortable in your own shoes, I think a lot of that comes from there. Once the right people with the right kind of attitude in a psychologically safe environment are given the chance to ask the questions, and there's no fear of retaliation, then
Yeah,
everyone starts asking questions, I think.
yeah, but there are spaces where that's not welcomed, right?
Yeah,
There's spaces where there's political layers that you just can't.
of
That's not
course.
a fight I'm willing to fight.
Hmm. So coming to today, let's talk about some of the current issues you tackle. Like, enough about your journey. Let's put you in the therapy chair and let's talk about how you're helping others with their
Yeah,
challenges. Maybe, like, let's start with an open question. Like, what are those things that you're talking about on a daily basis lately with revenue
sure.
leaders?
So I'll just tell you why I care so much about the topic of go-to-market strategy and making it easy for people. I've been fired once and managed out twice. I've been managed very poorly, and I've seen so many of my colleagues get managed out or fired and all these things. And um and it's often for things that can be solved.
Hmm.
But I was often not in positions that allowed me to make the right changes. So that's kind of the caveat. And I said to myself, I don't get why does this keep happening? That was an easy solve. So it got me thinking about, like, last year I spent a lot of time talking about buyer journey and we have to get close to the buyers. But really what it is a lot of revenue leaders, particularly today, step into a new role full of anxiety. Oh my gosh, I've got 13 to 15 months in this role before they fire me. That's it. That's
Yeah.
the CEO steps in and he starts a business and says, I have to make all of these pennies count before the VC are like, it's not working, and we got no more funds for you. We can't raise another round. So a lot of times leaders don't know that. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know where to look. They're like, I know something's not right, or we need to grow. What do I do? Like, we need to, there's an issue here and there's an issue there, and they're very symptomatic. So it's like, I'm just going to react to this and try and plug that hole. And then another hole starts leaking. I'm just going to plug that hole. So everything that I do is surrounded helping, first helping leaders to realize that there's probably things inside your go-to-market engine that are broken, and you don't know they're broken. You just think that's okay because maybe you're closing some deals and there's some money coming in and not losing that many customers. But over time, it's a bit like when your car finally breaks down and you realize, oh my gosh, the gear stick was doing this, or there's some kind of thing in the engine that was broken or leaking. So
So what are those things that once you start digging, once you start asking the questions, what are those things that come up generally, like those problems?
Yeah, so I break it into three areas. I call it the three eyes.
Mm,
And then there's like layers underneath that. So the first layer is, let's identify where there's issues in the three eyes. So the first eye is, there's an incoherent focus. A
mm,
lot of companies think, oh, we haven't closed the deal, or we're losing more than often, or it's the economy. And it's like, actually, you have not stayed close enough to what's happening in the market to enable you to keep refocusing and adapting your business, your messaging, your positioning, to make sure that people are still in a position to buy from you. The next I is an incompatible sales process, right? So you've got this process that you're running and your buyers are that way, which is you're trying to pull them into this space. Your team are doing everything in their own way. It's a lot of actions are down to the discretion of the rep, and it's not collaborative, meaning your sales process and customer journey is a handoff from marketing, handoff to sales, handoff to CS, and it's not orchestrated properly. The last I is an inconsistent methodology, meaning you don't consistently do the right things through your go-to-market team with prospects and buyers. So you're like, why does that rep? Oh, that rep's a lone wolf, and how comes they're doing it? It's because
mm,
you haven't codified. What
mhm,
does it mean to onboard a new customer? What does it mean in that first call? What is the thing that the buyer needs in that first call, and how are we supporting them in that first call? How do we handle pricing conversations consistently and repeatedly, where you can control it and own it? So those are the three eyes. And then below that surface, there's lots of different go-to-market building blocks that we start to look at.
mm.
And I've got, like, I can't count them. I think there's 7 go-to-market building blocks that I talk through. It's on the website, but it just helps people to have a lens as to what block do we need to look at. And
Mm.
then that's how I start to work with companies to work through it.
And if you were to differentiate between, those companies you work with, which are still a bit founder-led versus, they have their first hires or maybe the next hires, etc., like they handed off the leadership, sales leadership. What do you see as things that are working really well for both categories, and what do you see as things that end up not so well? So, let's start with founder-led sales. Where do you feel like things go well, and where do you feel like things go bad?
Founder-led sales, same. It's been the same for the. I've been working with founders for a long time, but for about 5 solid years, I've worked with founders around founder-led sales, and it's always this. It's funny. So you get 2 types, right? You have got the sales leader founder, and you've got the tech founder. To be fair, neither are very different. They think, a salesperson, I can do it. I've been in sales for ages. It's not the truth, because you're so close to it, right? And there's also a different way. I actually find sometimes technical founders do a better job, but that's a different story. What works and doesn't work. So with the founder-led sales, typically it's the process and the methodology.
Mm,
You get lots of inbound from VCs and your funding and your network. You get all of these kind of like bridge bound, or whatever they want to call it, and this ecosystem meeting. So you don't follow a proper process. It's just like, well, you know us because this person introduced us, and you don't add that the mechanics and the
mhm,
thoroughness that you would to a normal engagement.
mhm,
So the process is floppy. You leave money on the table. And all of that, because you're not structured in a way to drive a value conversation. You're driving
mhm,
a here's what I'm working on
mhm,
conversation. Do you want to check it out? Here's my idea. Whereas you've probably got something even at an MVP level that still could drive an incremental value for a company. So sell like you can give them something
yeah,
that's worth it, right?
yeah,
Um, Something that I see it, when it comes to focus at that early stage, it's a bit like, let's just see what sticks first, right? Then you start to tune in on the focus area, because you might pivot quite a few times. So you don't want to get too robust there. With the larger companies, it changes, right? So first, you grow to a certain level through creating this kind of sales process. The product is so good that
Mhm.
it sells itself to some degree, and you've got some methodology, and then you say, that took us to here. Now we are growing and we are compounding the value through additional service offerings, additional products, additional modules. And now we have to change our positioning.
Mhm.
Everybody knows us for doing this one thing, right? Like we're known for creating a digital sales room. Now we're creating a CRM. No one knows that. So now we have to change our story and our positioning. And I think a lot of companies, they assume that's just oh, now I'm going to mention it.
Mm.
Let sales just mention it on their calls. It starts from the types of companies that you're thinking about, how you're going to play, how you're going to win, marketing, awareness, all these things come into it. And most companies don't do that.
Yeah.
They leave it to sales.
Okay, those are so. I mean, being the founder of an earlier stage startup, I'm thinking that's an amazing problem to have. But even us, I think to a certain degree, we have that. So, for example, you mentioned digital sales rooms. Obviously, we're at DSR. We started with mutual action plans for the sales team, blah blah, and then customer success teams and onboarding. They have started
Mm,
really discovering us, hacking us, and now, for example, some of our quickest sales comes from complex onboarding challenges, helping people to
yeah,
move from step to step. But 2 months ago, we decided suddenly, okay, you know what, this is selling really well, so we should start talking about this as well on LinkedIn, on our platforms. But it's a new
yeah,
persona. It's sort of it's not a new product, but it is a new product in a way. So we call it Flow on board. Even we, at our very early stage, we have that challenge too. I don't know if
yeah.
this makes sense to you, and what advice you would give me actually to make the two work really well.
No, you know what? You're doing some of the right things. I'll give you another scenario. Think about like if you I'm really bad with actors' names, right? But if I mention like Nicolas Cage or a particular actor, you codify them to I know them for
Yeah.
that one thing, face off or whatever film it is, right? Like and what you find is when you ask an actress or an actor, why don't you like to do why don't you want to be in like a TV series or something? They're like,
Mhm.
because that defines my character.
That's my
It makes
brand.
it really hard for people to associate me with this new vulnerable role if I've always been the bad guy, and
Mhm.
it makes it hard. And it's the same with that situation. So what you do is to break out of that is you have to become more visible and talk about it, right? So people get to know the broader picture, the broader you, the different like that your company's multifaceted and you're
Mhm.
looking at trying to solve a bigger problem. So I always say if you set the vision that not that oh we want to create a digital sales room or a particular tool to solve for like asynchronous sales this and that, but we are on a mission and a vision is to make buying easy,
Mhm.
then everything that you make that falls in line with that, people are like, well, I expected that. A bit like
Mhm.
Apple, right? I expect someone said if Apple opens a hotel, you know what it's going to look like. But if I can't remember the other example. It's like, but if Hyatt tried to make a CD player, or if they tried to make a computer, you'd be like, what the hell is that going to feel like? Like
Mhm. I
that branding thing.
I love I expected that. I would expect that. It's very natural. It's in brand. It's kind of like wrapped up in the same kind of mission and vision as you say.
Yeah,
So I like that. It's still very difficult because I think maybe this is a nice segue into the world of attention grabbing. And you mentioned go to market. A lot of times it is about grabbing the attention of the prospect or the buyer. A lot of people are talking about now like content. I was in a call with like a few founders about how they want to start doing some influencer marketing and this and that. How are you seeing all that world of trying to grab the attention of the next person? Like, how has it evolved in the time that you have been involved in this world?
yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know anything about personal branding. I didn't know that was a thing. I started making content because I had a very small network. I never used to speak to people, believe it or not. Um, and I had no money. So I was like, if I need to, I had savings and that's what I was living on. So I said, okay, if I'm going to do this consulting thing full time, I need to let people know what I think. So they know, like, I need to be my own website, right? So I just started making really very, very formal videos in a shirt. And
Mm.
I'd be like, if you want to be in sales, sales leaders focus on your team. I started all doing that. And I was like, oh, this is awful. But it developed that muscle. So you do need to develop content. Like there's all the stats and all the stuff. But here's the thing. People need to first know that you exist.
Hmm.
From here, they need to trust that the things that are coming out your mouth, that you're not an AI, you're actually real. That's the first thing. Like, are you real? Okay. Then they need to know, then they need to trust that the things that you're saying make sense. There needs to be this belief system that marries to theirs, where they're like, okay, I get the concept of asynchronous communication to buyers. That makes sense. All right, building up trust. The next thing is I need to trust that your process and your system and your approach makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so okay, you're talking about that conceptually, but your approach and how I should solve that thing or address it makes sense. So you need to be able to provide those spaces for people to do those things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's how we grab attention, and it's over the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to disrupt that thinking, we need to. I said it earlier. I had a LinkedIn live, and it was called, how to talk so people listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I said how to talk until people listen, because at a point you have to keep going. I need you to continually share these things with me. So I'm like, I know you. Oh my God, Alper, yeah. Oh yeah, I trust you now. You talk about that a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, that approach makes sense to me. And now I'm like, oh, I trust that you can deliver on that promise. And you've shown me proof that you can do it. I'm ready. I'm listening. You got me.
Yeah.
And that is a combination of content from across the go-to-market team.
I love how you explain the psychology of it, and I think it's like the usual funnel: awareness, trust, all of these things. But it takes time. It builds in time. Some people give up early. I think one
Yeah.
of the things that I learned, I thought as a salesperson that I was very persistent and resistant and blah blah blah. Being a founder is a whole different game. I think now I am the next level on all these things.
It is like some, make content. It's like, okay, like, and sometimes, we were talking about our frustrations around these algorithms, right? And that's why I'm like, I don't even care if I've got a small newsletter, but I'm really sharing. I'm being very intentional about sharing stuff that are going to make people rethink how they're doing stuff. So when they do execute on some of those ideas, it's not something that they can just find on a random blog. It's like, no one's doing this.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Yeah.
And I've shared examples of companies that I know are experimenting with different tactics and shared screenshots and like, hey, they did it this way, because we have to be different. And it's so much effort. I'm like, oh my gosh, sometimes I don't want to post anything. Everyone leave me alone. But then that's how we feel sometimes. I'm over it.
Yeah. As we're coming towards the end of the conversation, I have a few quick, like, rapid fire questions for you. Some of them are relevant and some of them are personal. I'm just going to fire them, and you do your best in giving me your short answers because I'm curious personally.
Okay, let's go.
I've known you for a while and we've started discussing these things, and I have an idea, but what really makes you proud about your life and your career, or you as a person, and what drives you mad? Those two things, I'm curious.
What makes me proud is I am, what's the word? I'm so dedicated to being the best version of myself. I wake up and I literally roll out of bed. I jump up, do my 2 workouts, and I'm so excited because I'm like, I've got so much to learn. I've got so much value to give. I'm so excited. I've just learned something. I'm going to help people. So I'm so proud that I've unwrapped something in me that allows me to tap into that energy every day. What drives me crazy is, people that don't indicate in their cars. Like, what are you doing? Why don't you how am I supposed to know where you're going? That drives me crazy. As well as people saying cold calling is dead. Like, whatever.
Okay, fine. Sometimes you need to say things like that just to be. The other day I was talking to a PB consultant and they were like, yeah, you have to be controversial. And I been there, done that. I don't feel like being too controversial anymore, but anyway, that's another topic. Next question is, we already talked about these different primary challenges of sales teams, but if you were to summarize, what are most challenging to sales teams? What are those 1 or 2 things, and what's the remedy for them?
So sales teams will say the hardest thing right now, it is hard to get in contact with people. It's not, that is hard. It's hard to get in contact with people. It is. You have to get in contact with yourself publicly so people can find you. So it's hard. And it means that salespeople have to now tap into being themselves and being brave, even though for the last 7 years we've told reps, don't do anything. Here's our predictable model. Just focus on everything that we're telling you to do. And now we're like, we don't know what to do. Reps, you figure it out. It's hard. It's really hard.
Help us figure it out.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's so funny, the predictable revenue model and all that. Great, wonderful. But now we bring people in, and it's especially like founding AE and this, that. Anybody I bring into the team, if they're junior, senior, I don't care. I'm like, we have to solve this problem. I need your brain. It can't be just my brain, man. Yeah.
Exactly. Or I would have just done what I say. My thing is delegation. I hired someone who had never done the job before to help me with marketing. Zach is incredible. I tell Zach I work for him. You need to set me deadlines. I've set
Oh,
you a target. If I'm going to be the person to help you with that target, you got to tell me what I got to do and hold me accountable. Delegate, give people trust, give people responsibilities. He can't believe what I let him do. He's like, "Are you
I
sure?"
love
I'm
it.
like, "Go for it." And
Uh,
he gets it right because I trust him.
is that Gen Z?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, he's Gen Z.
Okay, good. Because I have my own share thoughts about some of the Gen Z and what they like and what they don't. Because sometimes when I give the ownership, they're like, you know what? No, thank you. I don't want the
Yeah, no,
ownership.
like he's like, "Holy crap, I have to get it done. I've been up all night." I'm like, "Go for it."
Okay, wonderful. Final question is, this was a great chat, but is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't, that I forgot to ask?
What can I sell people, and what do I have to offer other people?
Go
Yeah,
for
that's the question you can ask.
it. What can you sell? What can you offer?
There you go, brilliant. So right now I've got two things. I've got a very kind of accelerated coaching program over 4 weeks to help tech leaders figure out like where are some of the issues in their go-to-market, remove those blockers, and give them more light so they can go and get more revenue. That's just an accelerated version for people that don't have a ton of money. It's like 2.5 grand. Go for it. And then we have the more let's develop out your sales process, methodology, go-to-market strategy, and give you the blueprint for 15K. So if you need to get everything done and you're like, I can't afford 20K a month for all of these consultants, we found a way to do it at a lower cost that helps us to derive quicker value inside 10 weeks. So hit me up, can help you with that. And that's it.
I love all of that. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the show today, Hannah. That was a great chat. And before we say our closing words, do you have any closing remarks that you want to share?
Yeah, right now everyone should be kind of drop their ego and really think about how do I make everybody that I'm responsible for successful.
Mm.
And if that means that I need to step outside to ask for help in new places, and if I need to try and kind of like drop my ideas and thoughts, then just be brave enough to try that. It's okay. It will really help you move the needle. I've had to do that myself, stepping outside of stuff to get help with things that I kind of know, but it's helped me tremendously in the last 6 months. So I
Yeah,
encourage other people to do that.
I was going to say it's coming from experience. And obviously, when it
Yeah,
comes from
exactly.
experience, it's real.
Get help. It's okay. It's okay.
Love that. Now, Hannah, our time is over, and I'm going to cut us on the clock just like any good therapist. Thank you for joining me on Sales Therapy today. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we're looking to have you on the show again.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.